Welcome back to the NITE Economics YouTube channel, and tonight we're going to be looking at more bearish signals to come into the near future. If you're liking the content, please subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and without any further ado, let's get into tonight's video. So if you've been watching my analysis, my long-term analysis as to when we can expect the low of Bitcoin in this bear market, and if you saw my previous video, I was talking about the 2-week time frame, how we had this bearish cross to the downside, I guess silver cross, and this happened in the last candle, and we could expect approximately a 30, more or less about a 30, maybe 20 to 30, maybe a bit more % move to the downside, and that would leave us very close to the 200 simple moving average, and it will probably likely hit that because as time goes on, this will slowly start to creep up. Well, here's another nail on the Bitcoin coffin. Another nail on the Bitcoin coffin is that we had another bearish cross to the downside, this time on the 5-day time frame, and we've had the 55 exponential moving average moving below the 200 simple moving average, and this officially happened as of this open, right, on the opening of this candle here. So today is July 10th, so I guess that happened yesterday officially. Yeah, we're only 12 hours in, so 12 hours ago this officially happened. And actually, am I right about that? Maybe I'm wrong about that. Yes, actually I am right about that. Here it almost happened here, but not quite. So it happened officially here on this one over here. So for 12 hours ago, and this is a bearish signal, and I'll show you why. This has happened 2 other times in Bitcoin's history in this specific time frame, and it's also because, you know, Bitcoin is still relatively young. So if we look here in the 5-day time frame, we see that it happened here, and if we pick it up from that open there, so I like to pick it up from the open, not from the wick up. Although you could pick it up from the wick up too, but it'll give you more. A bigger move to the downside if you pick it up from the wick. I like to pick it up from the open because that's where the time, essentially that's when the cross happened. So if we pick this one up here, that happened in October. Yeah, it actually happened pretty late in the last bear market. It happened in September 2022, and you know, we got a low about 45 days later. Let me see, that might not be the absolute low. Yeah, actually, so no. So it happened 55 days later. We had a 20% move to the downside. So that's 55. So first one, 20% move to the downside, and it happened 55 days later. And then the other one that's previous to this, and there's no more after this essentially, was here. And this one was in June 2015, which is kind of similar to us. Kind of similar to our time frame, except ours happened in July, a couple weeks later. So if we take it from the open, is it here? This open here to the low, it's a 29% move. So it's 30% move. Let's just call it 30% move, and it took 70 days to play out. So 70 days. So if we look at so the one that happened just 12 hours ago is the 3rd time this has happened in Bitcoin's history. So I know it's not a lot of history to go by, but you know, if we're trying to do this thought analysis as to figure out when the low can be for Bitcoin and how low can it be more or less, it's a good thing to practice, and I think it'll make you a better investor because you can wait for a better entry point if you're looking to buy Bitcoin right now. Although I do think that it wouldn't hurt to buy some Bitcoin at 64,000. It's still pretty damn low if you can consider the high was what, 126,000 US dollars. So it's a little bit more than half of the price. So it's down about 50%, right? So if we pick it up from this open, which happened 12 hours ago, what does 20% look like? 20% move to the downside looks like 51,000. So that's a lot higher than what I think the low will be based off of my 2-week time frame video, or also the Bitcoin bottom formula. So Again, I'll repost that in this video if for anybody that's interested to see how I came to the numbers in that video, which is essentially the low 40,000 range. So this would be a lot higher, if only 20% were to play out, it would bring us down to 51,000. Now, if we get closer to that 30% move, which the first iteration of this cross gave us, that's a lot closer to my higher, more or less like my higher prediction. It's not really my higher prediction, but yeah, like it's around that 45,000 US dollars. So it's pretty much in that same pocket that I've been talking about, as high as 46,000, maybe as low as about 40,000, maybe even down to a wick down to 39,000. So somewhere in that range. It's really hard to say it's going to be exactly this price, but I do see Bitcoin getting down to these price ranges in these low $40,000 range, especially when you're starting to see multiple long-term time frames showing these bearish crosses to the downside. And the move essentially on both the 2-week and the 5-day have yet to happen. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take several months to play out. Now, in the previous iteration of this specific cross to the downside, it took 55 days to play out. And what does 55 days look like? It looks like the beginning of September. Yeah, the beginning of September. So September 3rd, more or less. Somewhere in that, mind you, that's a 5-day time frame. So it could be as late as what, September 8th? Between September 3rd and September 8th, or if we play the one that went all the way down, the first iteration of this cross that went down to 30%, it took 70 days to play out. So what does 70 days look like? It looks more or less in mid-September. So that's in place with what I had said with my previous my 2-week low, or the Bitcoin bottom formula. Well, I guess it's a couple of things, because the bottom Bitcoin formula is based off of, you know what, just watch the video. It's a lot easier to explain. It might get confusing, but essentially the previous video that I talked about how we also had the bearish cross, this bearish cross to the downside that happened in the last candle, this one right here, and I think this one could take us down to 30% from where that open is, and maybe even more. Right, 30% from that open is 43,000, 44, and if it goes deeper, it could get down to, what was I saying, around 40,000. I forget the exact number, but around 40,000 as low as that. So it's kind of in that same price range, essentially, the low, and the time frame is very similar. With the 2-week, it would go out either at the beginning of October or the end of October. But it's kind of in that same Q3, early Q4 time, from a time-based perspective, where we could expect a low. So I would say anywhere from September all the way to November, pretty much. I'm expecting a low sometime. I know that's a big time frame, but these things are so difficult to predict. What I can see for certain, I can't say with 100% certainty, but what I can say is a very high probability is that we're going to get another low sometime between September and November of this year. We're going to have another low. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I have for today's video. Again, if you're liking the content, please subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and I'll see you guys in the next nightly video. Take care.